Now I get this question all the time. Everyone wants to know, I'm going drifting, I'm going drag racing, I'm making over 400 horsepower. Will the T5 be okay? Short answer is no, it will not be okay. The problem here is the T5 is great and all, but it can only hold so much power, but it is inexpensive to build. And it's either you go with a T5 or you drop a lot of cash on a TKX or a T56 Magnum conversion. Now, a TKX, I believe the power limits are around 600 horsepower. T56 Magnum, I believe they're around 800, and I even think people are running more through that transmission, and it's holding up. So the Magnum is without a doubt the best 6-speed Tremec you can buy for your classic Mustang, whatever your project car is. So unfortunately, there is no middle ground here. It's either you get a T5 if you're just going to cruises and cars and coffee, spirited driving. T5 is great. If you have an old 4-speed and you're screaming at 4,000 RPM, going 70 miles an hour, and you really need that overdrive, T5 would also be a great option. But if you're trying to go drifting, doing burnouts, donuts, drag racing, beating on your car all day long, then don't even waste your time with a T5. I just get this question a lot, and I don't want to point you in the wrong direction. Yes, I would love to rebuild it and get the business, but I just have a conscience and I can't tell you that, yeah, it'll be fine when it won't. So that being said, I hope that clears some things up, and let's get started. Welcome to the channel, guys. Today I'm going to be assembling this T5 transmission. It's going in a 64 Ford Fairlane Sports Coupe. I'm probably not going to be doing a step-by-step how-to. If you guys are looking for that kind of video, I'll leave the link below. I made one a few years back, very detailed, in-depth video, how to rebuild your T5. So there's actually one thing we got to do before I start assembly is I like to go through the engagement teeth and just knock off the burr or the lip at the edge of the teeth. Since this is a used gear set, there's a little bit of a lip there, which is normal, and it just creates a smooth surface for easier and smoother shifting. And that's something that I always do to all my transmission rebuilds. I also want to make a point here, guys, that you do not want to take away any of the base material. It does say this in the manual, but you just want to get rid of the lip that's on top of the tooth. You don't want to be grinding into the tooth. Take away as little material as possible. Now, this is the first gear. It's not so bad, but I'm still just going to go and touch it up, and it won't hurt anything. There's almost no burr on here. You can almost see my nail. It gets stuck right there. That is the burr that I'm talking about. But like I said, this first gear is almost has no burr on it. I'm being really meticulous at this point. I actually opened up a T5 one time and somebody grinded like a new point to this thing, and they took so much out of the tooth. So you don't want to be doing that. Just want to make that clear. I'll give this case a wipe down. You can never be too clean. Sometimes you clean it over and over and you still miss a little spot here and there, so trying to get in every corner. Our first piece to the puzzle is the countershaft bearing race, and that gets installed down in here. So I'm gonna flip this case around. I like to put a little silicone on here just for added security measures, and we'll tap this thing in. I'm gonna take this big punch here and we're gonna tap it down. Next, we got to get our new counter gear bearing on. This is the one off the old one. There is nothing wrong with it, but I'm still going to take it off and replace it because I just like putting all the new parts together as one. So it's pretty easy to get this off. I like putting it in a vise and just using a pry bar, and you can kind of work it up. The press fit isn't that tight, so it's usually pretty easy to get off. There it is. This either is not too bad. It's normal for these teeth to get banged up. I would say like this one is normal on the front, but when we come back to this guy, I mean, that's a little too far chipped in there. These ones look pretty nice, but it only takes one tooth for me to say, you know what, this thing's trash. So that's where that guy's going. Brand new one in here, and we'll give him that one. Beautiful. I've seen people leave me comments in the past saying you need to oil your transmissions before you close up the case. Well, I don't do that because I don't want to risk oil coming out onto the mating surface, kind of like it did right here. Boom. And that'll cause a leak. So that's pretty much one reason why I don't do it. I only use it on the bearings, you know, a little bit on these parts that I'm installing just to make them install easier. But once you fill this with oil when it's in the car, these gears are soaking in an oil bath. It's not like an engine where you need to have a pump to pump it to the top and, you know, through all the oil galleys and all that. That's not how this works. This thing's sitting in an oil bath from the minute you pump fluid in it. So the time that you pull out of your driveway, this thing's already lubricated. What you should definitely oil up if you're gonna oil up anything is the synchronizers. You have to get some oil soaking on these carbon linings. Pretty much like a clutch pack, you know, in a limited slip differential. You wanna soak those in some friction modifier before you know, install them in the diff. So same idea with these synchros. I do put oil on these before I install them, just to get them soaked in a little bit. And I'm over here talking and forgetting to put parts in. Definitely tricky to get this started. Just know where to get your hands in there. And I just hit it till it's flush or a little below. I do got to change out this Welch plug. I almost forgot, so let me tap that out before I put my rail in, and we'll put a new one in. Gotta love brake cleaner. Next, we have to press on this bearing. But in order to do that, we got to flip this upside down into the press. So I'm going to get that set up. Alright, we got our bearings on. Just want to show you guys a little pro tip here. I had somebody contact me recently saying that when they installed the counter shaft, it was binding up a little bit. They had the counter plate on, everything was tight in here. But just to show you guys, if you're having a binding issue, it's more than likely the bearing isn't pressed on all the way, or one side of it is not all the way in. And what I like to do is, let me get a pocket screwdriver here, point this out. Between the bearing right here and the gear, we're looking at this space right here. And I always like to just spin this and just make sure that that bearing is contacting the counter gear, making sure that the bearing is pressed all the way down, and we're looking good. And we still got a little bit of dirt. It's really hard to keep this clean, guys, especially with the camera. The camera just picks up every little detail that you can't see with your own eyes. So half the time I don't even see this stuff until I go and edit the video. So what I'm shooting for here is 0 end play. It's always good to start with the shim that came off the transmission if you still got it. But if you're a parts hoarder like me, I got shims for days. So I'm gonna start with the one we had and see how close that is. So the shim's gonna go in the retainer here. Now this bearing is going to seat in about 1/1000th or 2, you know, once it breaks in. And once you find 0, I like to go about 1/1000th tighter, because this plate is not like the stock stamped steel thin plate, which stretches. Once I set this up in here, the only thing that's going to change is how much that bearing breaks in. So by compensating 1/1000th or 2, by making it 1/1000th or 2 tighter, you're compensating for that bearing to break in. And at that point, you have it set up where you want it, and it won't change any further from that. Okay, we don't seem to have any play, which is pretty spot on. Sometimes this takes me 5 minutes, sometimes it takes me 40 minutes. So we're actually pretty close right now. Probably going to make this about maybe 2-3 thousandths tighter. There's just, you know, not really any drag on it. It's kind of just loose spinning in there, even though there's no end play. So I'm gonna take this off and add a little bit to it. About 100, 103, 102, shoot for 106. Almost. There's a little bit less drag on this one, but we need to go a little tighter. So I'm gonna pull this off again, change my shim, go up another couple thousandths. And I was able to change out my small shim, got about a 111, 112. So let's try that. Well, that feels very nice. That's the kind of drag you're looking for there. I'm gonna torque it up, check it again, make sure I still like it, and we'll move on. Let's check it out. Oh yeah. Nice. Time to move on to the main shaft. That's everything for the bottom. So we're about 1/3 of the way, into this build. So I always like to check the fit with these. There's pretty much 3 different spots you can install this on the main shaft. So I always like to take it and just kind of fit this on here. Whatever way has the least amount of side-to-side play is the one that I pick. That one has a little more than the previous one. And we'll try the third one. One's got some slop to it. So I think we'll stick with this one. The first one on there I had was pretty nice. Yeah, not much play there. So we'll go with that. Get my synchro lubed up because it's about to go on. This we can do first and second while we're here. There we go. All right, now here's the last one. Tight squeeze there, but they're all in. Just like to rub the grease around it, get it all in there so they don't go nowhere. Oh yeah, that feels dead on, and I'm happy with that. So I'm gonna take these bolts out, put some silicone on here, torque them down, seal it up, and we can just put the finishing touches on this thing. Still gotta load up the bell housing, and yeah, let's keep moving. Tell you guys a little story here while we seal this up. My first Fox body, my first T5 rebuild I ever did, I did not put the bearing race back in the retainer. And let me tell you how I only had first, third, and I don't even know if I had fifth, but it was very frustrating because I had just done a heads cam intake swap. It was AFR heads. I put a comp cams. I forget the number, the grind number. I think 262 HR, their extreme energy cam. That thing was, I love that cam. I might build another one in the future with that cam, but yeah, it was just very frustrating because when I took it for the first test drive, you know, I was like, nice rebuilt trans, new motor, all that stuff, and went to shift it in a second and it would just not go. And it's not fun going from first to third, and that takes all the fun out of it. So I was really beside myself and a little depressed, but you know, a couple weeks go by, you pull it out, you get it done, and that car was a blast to drive. And what I always like to do before I give it my okay is just throw a stock shifter on here, run it through the gears, and make sure that there's no issues, no engagement issues or nothing like that, because sometimes some things just happen. I actually had a old Pro 50 shifter that I dedicated to this procedure, but I put that in my red hatchback. So I'm gonna use this stock shifter for now, and I got a Steeda handle on top. Let's throw a yoke in the back here. So we are in neutral. So if I spin the input, this should not spin. Got a good neutral. There's our first. Second. Third. Fourth, fifth, and reverse. Looking good. And there we have it, another stick saved. It's a new year. Maybe I will mark down every transmission I rebuilt for this year, and at the end of the year, we'll see how many sticks I saved. I also have a TR6060 coming in. He should be here any minute, out of a Chevy. I believe it's a Camaro. Stay tuned for a video on that. I'm gonna tear that down, and hopefully we can rebuild that one. And if you guys are interested in a rebuild, my email's down below. Maybe I'll put it on the screen. Shoot me an email. I'd love to rebuild it for you. I'm down here in Palm Coast, Florida. If you have to ship it to me, it's probably gonna be like $200-300 one way. Sometimes that's a deal breaker, and I get it, shipping is expensive. Now in some cases, some of these Tremecs are not rebuildable. Some of the parts are just not available, but that's why the T5 is so great, is because parts are available for these transmissions. If you guys want to see what I'm talking about, I did a T56 teardown video and it was not rebuildable. So if you have a T56 and you have the same symptoms, it's a good video to check out.